Hello, Brobs. We're back with Frank Leslie's Christmas book, 1889 to 90. A bizarre book that means really nothing, but what I've ascertained about Mr. Leslie is that he was actually Henry, what was his first name or last name? Chester? Henry Chester, and his father forbade him to illustrate and become an illustrator, but obviously once he reached adulthood, he became an illustrator and rather successful one at that, employing numerous illustrators to finish large. I mean, he had several newspapers, magazines that he was part of after being picked up by P.T. Barnum to do his. But yeah, Leslie, after he died, he was in so much debt that his wife actually changed her name to Frank Leslie just to, I think, hold on to the copyright. I don't remember the exact story, but it was pretty interesting. So he was forbade to be an illustrator by his family, and he just said, I'm going to keep doing it, and he did it. All right. Unlike most YouTube channels that talk about books, it might show you a cover. Here's an actual book, and here's some actual words. The Refugee and the Goat. I don't know why that none of these have ownership to the... It's weird, because the first story had ownership, unless all these are by that same person. I doubt it, but who knows. The Refugee and the Goat. A gentleman having taken a very... Let's start that again. A gentleman having taken a very active part in the Scotch Rebellion of 1745, escaped after the Battle of Prestopans. Something tells me that's not right. Prestopans? Preston Pans? To the West Highlands, where he was received by a relative of his, a lady who, being like himself attached to the Stuarts, was glad to offer him an asylum. But as the search was very strict after the rebels, who, if taken, were executed, it was necessary for him to be carefully concealed. He was therefore conducted by one of the lady servants to a cave in a sequestered part of the mountains, and being furnished with a supply of food, for some little time was left to take care of himself. The only way of entering the retreat was by a small opening, through which he had to creep, carrying his provisions with him. A little way from the mouth, the cave became more lofty and still advancing. Cautiously in the darkness, he presently became aware of a something that stopped his further progress. Unable to see what it was and afraid to strike anything in the dark with his dirk, he stopped and felt carefully around for the object, and soon perceived that it was a goat with a kid. This would not have been an unpleasant discovery had he not feared that the owner, following the goat hither, might betray him to his enemies. Otherwise she might supply him with nourishment. Soon, however, he discovered that she was in great pain, and then carefully feeling about her, perceived that one of her legs was broken. Fortunately, he was not without some knowledge of the treatment of animals. He therefore bound up her leg with his garter and offered her bread to eat, but her mouth was parched, and she refused the bread. He then gave her water, which she drank eagerly. Deeply interested in his suffering companion, he ventured out at midnight, pulled a quantity of grass and the tender shoots of such trees as goats are fond of browsing, and carrying them to her in the cave, he had the pleasure to find that she ate of them ravenously. The goat remained for some time the companion of his solitude, and he had the satisfaction of knowing that she was rapidly recovering. At this time it happened that the servant to whom was entrusted the secret of his retreat fell sick, and it was necessary to send another with provisions. The goat, on this occasion, happening to be near the mouth of the cave, opposed the man's entrance with all her might, butting at him most furiously. The gentleman in the cave, hearing an unusual noise, went forward a few yards, and then, receiving the usual watchword from his new attendant, came to the entrance, and after a few words of interposition, the faithful goat permitted the man to enter. So resolute was the animal in her opposition that the gentleman felt convinced she would have died in his defense. Mother's darling. There you go. And there's the refugee and the goat. Well, that was it. That's the story. Well, I hate to break your Christmas cheer, but that was it. Dead ender. The goat turned human. All right. I don't know what to say. Befuddled by this book. But here's the next stories coming. I will close that. And that's all for Frank Leslie for this entry.